Hey, it's Dayna Steele. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's. Today we're speaking with Lisa Feiner from the organization sharpagain.org, who has a new book out this week. It is so good. She gave me an advance copy, and I sent her a note telling her how much I wish I had had this when we first started to worry about mom's cognitive decline. And she took what I said and put it on the back of the book, which is such an honor. Thank you for that. The book is Minding Your Memory, What You Can Do Now to Prevent Dementia and Stay Sharp for Life. And by the way, this is for anybody of any age. After I lost my mom to Alzheimer's, I decided to take everything I learned and everyone I've met since and share that information and the lessons learned. I'm Dayna Steele, and this is Hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's, a caregiver's manual, a how-to guide for friends and family, and a safe space to learn and vent, and maybe share a glass of wine. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so good to see you. Lovely backdrop there.
Well, we try a little bit of sharp again on either side,
Where are you? You in New York right now?
Just got back to New York a couple of days ago.
And all wrapped up in the book getting ready to be released.
Yeah, the book and the fall is always a time of transition and lots going on and schedules getting busy again. And so in the throes of all that, um, but it's good. It's a challenge and it's good for our brains, right? To be challenged. So
And
um
that is why you are here on hashtag surviving Alzheimer's. Lisa Feiner, I did a speech at the Palm Desert Library, and you were on vacation in the area and came to my speech. And I was like, what are you nuts? You're coming, you're on
You
vacation.
know, anything related to Alzheimer's and dementia, not everything, but we're more on the prevention side and really trying to educate people about the underlying causes of memory loss so that we don't have this tsunami that has, kind of gained momentum over the years. There's got to be a way to start to you know, have it wane and have people really have more, just more agency over their cognitive health. And
Well,
it's
this is
possible.
about you. It's about Sharp Again, your company. It is about your book that is coming out. Give me the title again.
It's called Minding Your Memory, What You Can Do Now to Prevent Dementia and Stay Sharp for Life.
But one of the first questions I'm going to ask you is, yes, you did come see my speech at the library in Palm Desert. How would you describe my talk?
I think books like the one you wrote are so empathetic and paint such a picture of what you went through with your family with such compassion, honestly. And the humor also does so much really to help caregivers get through what are sometimes just heartbreaking situations. Um, and it just shows me, I'm also been on the board of a nursing and rehabilitation facility for over 25 years and see firsthand every day what people go through with parents who they slowly feel, they're losing. And in a way, it's a motivator for people to say, I don't want to see anyone else go through this. Um, and it's also a way to connect. People need to connect and
Well, we've got to
understand.
talk about it.
We have to talk about it.
Talk about it.
And there's been so much good stuff coming down the pike, right? Research and hope, and people who even are so really genetically predisposed who are really holding off and delaying it, or if not preventing getting Alzheimer's. So I think there's a lot of hope going forward. And we're all in this together.
And
I
we
mean, I sort of
are.
felt that kinship with you right away, you
Well,
know?
I'm so glad you came because I immediately dove into your website, into your materials, and have since had a chance to read an advanced copy of the book. And it's kind of changed my mission too, Lisa. You have sort of changed me from a caregiver advocate into I now tell people I am a brain health and caregiver advocate. So I'm not only here to help, guide caregivers through the good, the bad, the ugly, the laughter, the whatever you need, but I have become an evangelist on a lot of what I learned going through your materials, which I kind of knew, having that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm the daughter of a mother who died from Alzheimer's. But the more I learn, the more I read your things, the more I read other things, it is there is no definitive proof it is hereditary because they'll say, "Oh, more often than not, if your mother had it, the daughter has it." Well, that's because you cook the same, you eat the same, you probably live in the same same neighborhoods, the same areas, you use the same cleaning fluids. You do a lot of the bad things that you hadn't even thought about bad, like canned foods. And my mother took a walk every morning on the golf course after they sprayed it and before the golfers came through. I look at that. She did not, she had a beautiful smile, but really bad dental health, and I always think, oh, that bacteria is so close to your brain. So many things that you actually can be doing now to slow and push away cognitive decline. Um, when you first started getting involved with Sharp Again and preaching to people that these are the things you need to be doing, were you welcomed with open arms or was there a lot of pushback?
So I think, I sort of fell into this kind of by accident. Like this was not necessarily a big interest of mine. I mean, when I helped to start Sharp Again, no one in my family had been diagnosed with dementia yet. It was my work with the nursing home, my work as a health and wellness coach, um, really looking at the body as a kind of system of systems, if you will, that everything's interrelated, and understanding that and feeling that really strongly. That when we first heard at this networking meeting that someone had gone online to look up supplements that their mother might take because she had just been diagnosed at 72 with kind of the early stages of Alzheimer's. And then they started uncovering some people who said that they had been diagnosed, but then had gotten treated in some way. And they followed that path and shared this information with us. And, it really hit home. Like it made so much sense. You know how you get that feeling like almost in your heart space and in your gut that this is right, like this is a truth.
And it makes sense. It makes sense. One of the things I learned from you, and it is just such a bone of contention now between Wonder Husband and me. It's like, don't you bring that dry cleaning in the house.
Mm.
You are going to insist on taking your stuff because I don't have anything that's dry cleaned because I'm too cheap for that. But if you're going to insist on having your things dry cleaned, you go pick it up in the car. I don't want to smell all those chemicals, and put it outside to air out before you stick it in our closet. That's just one of those things I took away. Many, many, many lessons. Um, every,
Wait, I want to answer your question
oh yeah,
because
go ahead. I'm sorry.
you asked me, like, what was it like in the beginning? And in the
Yeah.
beginning, people thought we were nuts. I mean, at the time in 2011 and early 2012, the traditional medical community certainly had no thought in this direction of prevention and early intervention. And, they were looking for a drug, a miracle drug, and otherwise, even the drugs that we had at that time, which might have been Aricept, let's say, or Namenda, it was like, take this. It may help slow things down a little bit, but it's not going to really change the course of the disease. And you better get your affairs in order. And unfortunately, there is a pocket of the medical community who are still saying those exact same things. We have some different drugs now. which may be a little bit more helpful to some people. Um, but what has happened in the interim as well is that the research is now catching up with what we've been saying all along. And frankly, we've been able to add more causes or risk factors to our list, which is a little, upsetting in a way, but it really is consistent with our lifestyles and unfortunately, our environments, which have gotten more dangerous, toxic, not as healthy as they were when, let's say, our parents were children. Um, and so today, there's so many people preaching about what you can do for your brain. Um, and so, but we always just walk through the doors that open to us. And I think that was the saving grace. We felt strongly about what we were doing. There were a lot of naysayers. How can you say that? Scientists would get up and say, show me the studies. And that's why we wrote the book. And the book has been many, many years in the making.
Yep.
But I wanted really, this was sort of my baby. It's like all of the research in one place that supports are including these risk factors, these causes on our list.
Well, tell us some of the risk factors, and I need, yeah, people love examples, and people also love advice. So, a couple of the risk factors, and also a couple of the things, because I preach sleep all the time. Get a good night's sleep. Get a good night's sleep. Find a sleep routine. You know, people say, "Oh, yeah, I've never slept well." Well, find a way. So, what
Yes,
are some of?
yes,
Yeah, you can find
exactly.
a way.
Because if
You
you
can.
don't find a way, it might contribute to memory loss down the road.
So, what are
So
some of the risk factors?
So in the book and in the way I think about it as a health coach, because of also the way Sharp Again operates, we look at lifestyle factors, things that you can start doing today that you have ultimate control over. So your diet, your nutrition, there's nutrition that really powers up the brain and supports it. And there's nutrition that really starts to muck up the works, right? And then
Like
physical.
what? Like what?
Okay, so things that are good for the brain are omega-3 oils, your smash fish, the fish that that's salmon, mackerel, not king mackerel, regular mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. So small fish,
Smash. Okay,
you
smash it.
know, they're not in the ocean a long time. And so they're not getting a lot of heavy metals and PCBs and toxins. Which is why we say, the steak fish like tuna, swordfish, shark, um, some of these very big fish, halibut even, uh, can tend to have quite a lot of toxins in them and mercury. So that's a distinction right there. You want to be eating, nuts and seeds and chia, things that have lots of good oils, good omega-3s, and you want to reduce your seed oils like, your corn. Well, corn oil is not so great
Yeah,
for us.
ooh, nasty.
And, you
No.
know, a lot of the safflower and sunflower, they're not so great for us. So, if you look at the Mediterranean diet, which has been proven time and time again throughout all the last 12 years to really be kind of the basic good diet for us. They eat nuts, use olive oil, lots of healthy vegetables and greens, minimize the sugar. It's the
Oh,
sugar
sugar. Yeah.
and the simple carbs, like all of your donuts and pastries and bagels and bread and all of this. It clouds the brain. It
My
does.
mother loved canned food items, um, sh tons of artificially colored peanut M&Ms every day. But everything she loved crackers and bread and all of that highly um, processed foods. And it's just like,
Right.
so I know when she passed, I started really looking into things like that. I stopped painting my nails. I don't paint my
Mm.
nails. I just buff them. Because I thought, that's a lot of chemicals too.
The
Also,
thing is,
people find silly, but I
I
would
can't fault our parents though,
no, I didn't know
because do you remember in the 50s and 60s when all the canned foods came in and made life, it felt so much easier.
that
But
and TV dinners. It was all so much easier for everyone.
right, and the BPA and the can linings, I think that came later.
Hmm.
But it's those kinds of things that many people don't know about, and so they it's a big part of what Sharpigan does is just to educate people, about, are you using Teflon pans that are off gassing, that are putting chemicals in your, PFOAs into your food? You know, are you using a lot of canned goods? Frozen is as good, flash frozen fruits, vegetables, as good as, you know, buying things out of season, let's say in the wintertime.
I bought
So,
a whole bunch of canned food items the other day. Well, a whole bunch. I bought eight, which is a bunch for me. I can't tell you the last time I bought canned, but it's for an earthquake kit. When I lived on the Gulf Coast, I had them in my hurricane kit, and they do come in handy after a hurricane. But it just felt so weird buying that stuff at the grocery store because I don't buy that. I buy fresh vegetables. I buy the frozen vegetables. What are some of the resources that people can access for free on your website?
so we have a wonderful 20-page guide called Roadmap to a Sharper Mind. And it takes the list of risk factors and causes of memory loss and it expands on them. And then the book, I feel like, is like a greater expansion on them.
Or expansion?
Um, and we offer free webinars most months of the year. And we also have it's been an online coaching program, but we're starting to make those live and take those into communities where people work in small groups with a health coach to set goals, their individual goals based on the lifestyle. So you would ask me, what some of the factors were. So the lifestyle factors are nutrition, exercise, sleep, prolonged stress, social isolation, and lack of mental stimulation. So those are things that we really can make small, steady changes in all those areas. And then the other areas which may need some testing and some doctor treatment are things like low hormone levels, trauma, whether it's emotional or physical trauma that people have experienced. It could be low-lying infections, like things that you don't necessarily think of. I was surprised, many years ago to find out that urinary tract infections cause a delirium that mimics dementia,
Yep. We've had
right?
that.
So there are
Dementia's the
things
bomb.
like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes food sensitivities. Many of these underlying infections, as we think about them, cause inflammation in the body. Like the oral infections you were sort of alluding
Right.
to early
Right.
on. And we may not even be aware of it. You could be totally asymptomatic, but things can be going on inside. And so it's these sorts of things, looking at your prescription drugs and trying to minimize them, the benzos, certain other drugs, really, we know if you're on them for a long period of time, can contribute to memory loss down the road. So, sometimes cleaning up your diet, increasing your exercise, having a healthier lifestyle will decrease your need for some prescription medication. Let's
For a
say
lot of
even
those
diabetes,
drugs.
or pre-diabetes. Um,
Found it to be very helpful. I looked up some time ago. Um, I just Googled a Mediterranean diet grocery list.
hmm,
And I printed that out and kept it for a long time until I pretty much had it memorized. So like today for lunch, I cut up a chicken breast in bite-sized pieces, along with squash, garbanzo beans, Brussels sprouts. It's kind of whatever I had, carrots, onions, garlic. Tossed it with some oregano from my garden, a little salt and pepper, roasted it, and then put a little feta on it, and it was just a great lunch.
Sounds delicious because you have a little fat in there from the cheese and you have
A little
healthy.
olive oil, roasted it with a little olive oil.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
sounds delicious.
it a lot of people don't realize there are ways, and it was very simple and it was very quick. I couldn't have gotten to a restaurant, parked, ordered lunch, not have any control over what they put in it, and come home in the time it took me to, cut those things up, toss them all in a bowl, throw them in the oven for 25 minutes, and have a good lunch. So once you get yourself in the habit of doing things like that, and your book, and again, it is like because after you and I met, you sent me that 20-page document, and man, I was going through that thing, circling things. I was like, okay, need to do this, not doing this, need to get better at that. And it was such an honor and a privilege to be given an advance copy of your book, because it does expand on it some very good things. Um, what do you want people to walk away from this interview with, besides buying a copy of your new book?
I think the knowledge that we really can impact our brain health, but we need to start a little earlier than maybe many of us would be inclined to, because the changes in the brain, as I know you know,
Yeah.
start probably close to 2 decades before you would even notice the first symptom. And there is a real big disconnect there for people, because if it's like they feel like, well, if it ain't broke, like, why am I fixing something? But we now know, and I think this is really where the research comes in. We now know that taking steps earlier in life to address some of those lifestyle habits, which may not be either so healthy, or we may have just, there's certain things that like you mentioned, like sleep. Well, I've never slept well. So it's sort of like people toss that off, or aren't we all under stress,
Or I don't
But
have time to exercise. Well, then
or
get up
I don't,
30
right. They
minutes
sort
early.
of make excuses, but the thing is, each of these things on their own is important. And what we have found is, and maybe this is the big takeaway, is that dementia is not caused by one thing in most cases. It's very, very rarely is it one thing. So if you look at the group of things, the risk factors, things we know, even things that are really not yet proven per se to be causes, like hearing loss, or even glaucoma. If you've got glaucoma in your family, it's something, when you start losing your senses, it impacts your brain.
Mhm.
And so some of these things, the takeaway is you have to elevate your lifestyle a little bit. You have to care, and you have to make yourself a priority. And that's probably the hardest thing, where our brains, our minds, our attention, our focus are being kind of bombarded today more than ever before by so many so many outside influences, right? And so in a way, the call to action is like to take your life back for yourself so that you can enjoy it more for the long term. We want to keep doing, I mean, I've got grandchildren. I'm on the floor playing with them. I want to be able to enjoy them. I want to be able to travel and enjoy my life, or whatever it is that people enjoy doing. I mean, maybe it's just walking, maybe it's, fishing. I mean, whatever you enjoy, you would like to be able to continue that as long as you possibly can. And so I'm hoping that our work gives people incentive to take better care of not only their bodies, but their brains, so that they can live a life of true joy.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's. If you like this, you might like my other podcast. It's called Off Their Rockers with Dayna, Steele, me, and Lisa Forehand. It's for women 50 plus who are still rocking our world in business, in entertainment, and more. Off Their Rockers, wherever you find, listen to, or watch your podcast. Also, every morning, Monday through Saturday, I do a list of 10 to 20 nonpartisan facts. Just the facts, just the truth. You can find them on all my social media channels, on my website, or you can sign up for the morning email at daynasteele.com, DAYNASTEELE. I hope this helps a bit, and if it does, share it with others. You cannot do this crazy journey alone. And if you need more information on the book, the play, or more episodes, go to daynasteele.com. Surviving Alzheimer's with Friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine is available in Kindle and paperback versions on Amazon. Hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's is produced by JFA Inc. in association with Blue Squirrel Productions.